The shooting range was buzzing with noise that day, targets snapping, brass hitting the floor, and voices rising in friendly competition. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the same corner of the room, where the reigning champion stood tall, confident, and unchallenged. He was the kind of man people whispered about, a local legend who rarely missed and had a wall of trophies to prove it. Around him, the atmosphere carried a mix of admiration and intimidation, as if no one dared to believe his record could ever be broken. And then, almost unnoticed, she walked in. A simple woman, dressed plainly, with no fancy gear, no visible confidence, and not a single soul recognizing her face. Some people barely looked up, others smirked, assuming she was just curious or maybe even lost. After all, what chance could she possibly have against the best shot in the room? The air was thick with dismissive glances, quiet laughter, and the kind of silence that only comes when no one expects much. But she didn't flinch. She took her spot, calm and collected, while the whispers rolled on behind her. The champion leaned back, smiling, as if already certain the moment would end in another easy win for his reputation. Yet there was something in her eyes, steady, focused, unshaken, that hinted she wasn't here for fun, and definitely not to be ignored. The room grew quiet as she raised her weapon for the very first time, her hands steady, her gaze locked on the target. No one knew what was about to happen. Not the champion, not the crowd, and maybe not even her. And then came the shot that made the entire range fall silent, because what she hit was something no one thought possible. The bullet struck the target with a sharp crack, and the echo seemed to last longer than usual. When the paper was reeled back, the crowd leaned in, their chatter fading into stunned silence. The shot wasn't just good, it was perfect, cutting directly through the center mark with a precision that even the champion rarely achieved. For a moment, no one spoke. Then a murmur rippled through the range, people exchanging glances, unsure if what they saw was luck, skill, or something far greater. She didn't smile, didn't boast, and didn't even look around for approval. Instead, she quietly reloaded, eyes fixed on the lane ahead. That quiet confidence only deepened the mystery. Who was she? Why had no one seen her before? The regulars began whispering guesses. Some thought she might be ex-military. Others believed she was trained in secret. The champion, though, just narrowed his eyes, his casual grin fading as curiosity started to take over. The shooting range had always been his stage, a place where he dominated every contest and earned every cheer. But now, this simple woman, someone the crowd had brushed aside minutes earlier, had stolen the spotlight with a single pull of the trigger. The weight of the moment lingered. The air was charged with the question no one dared to ask out loud. Was his record in danger? She adjusted her stance again, slow and deliberate, as if nothing about the room or its stairs mattered. The champion crossed his arms, studying her every move, waiting for her second shot. The onlookers leaned closer, torn between disbelief and anticipation. And just as the tension reached its peak, she raised her weapon again, setting the stage for something no one could predict. The second shot rang out, and once again the target reeled back with a flawless strike. The whispers grew louder, turning into an uneasy buzz. Some people began recording on their phones, capturing what they sensed could be history in the making. The champion's jaw tightened, though he tried to mask it with a forced grin. He had seen challengers before, but never anyone like this. Someone so unshaken, so deliberate, and so precise. It wasn't just her accuracy. It was the calm way she carried herself, like the noise of the crowd didn't even exist. Among the onlookers was a young man who had been training at the range for months, always hoping to learn from the champion. His eyes widened as he realized he was witnessing something far more valuable than any lesson he'd ever been given. A few older regulars exchanged quiet remarks, saying they hadn't seen shooting this clean in years. Yet no one knew her name, and that mystery made every pull of the trigger feel heavier. The champion finally stepped forward, offering her a mock applause that carried just enough sarcasm to sting. "Nice shots," he said loudly, making sure everyone heard. "But let's see if you can keep it up. One lucky streak doesn't make a shooter." His words drew a mix of laughter and nervous looks, the crowd unsure whether to side with the legend they had always admired or the newcomer who was rewriting the rules with every bullet. The woman didn't respond. She simply loaded again, her silence cutting deeper than any argument. The room felt split, half expecting her to stumble, half waiting for the impossible to continue. And as she steadied her aim once more, it was clear this wasn't just about targets anymore. It was about pride, reputation, and a battle no one had expected. The third shot echoed through the range, sharper and heavier than the last two, as though the walls themselves were listening. When the target slid back, the hole was nearly invisible, layered directly over the first. Gasps rippled across the room. People leaned closer, straining to believe what they were seeing. 3 flawless shots, each one as precise as the last. It wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was skill on a level the crowd had never witnessed before. The champion's smile finally cracked, and his voice carried a harder edge. "All right then," he said, motioning to the range master. "Let's make this interesting." A new target was set, smaller, farther, the kind most shooters avoided unless they wanted to prove something. The crowd stirred with excitement, sensing the shift. This wasn't just a contest anymore. It was a duel, a test of who would own the title of the best shooter in the room. The woman stepped forward without hesitation. Her movements stayed calm, steady, almost unhurried, as though time itself had slowed around her. The champion positioned himself nearby, arms folded, watching every angle, waiting for the smallest mistake he could call out. The tension grew so thick that even the regulars who had known the champion for years stayed quiet, unwilling to break the spell. Some in the crowd whispered their bets. Others clasped their hands, eyes locked on the woman's every move. The younger shooter who had been watching all afternoon held his breath, torn between awe and fear of what might happen next. The air smelled of gunpowder and nerves. Every second felt stretched thin, every sound magnified. And just as the room seemed ready to burst from anticipation, she raised her weapon again, poised to take the shot that could change everything. She steadied her aim, the barrel aligned with the distant target, when suddenly the range master raised his hand. "Hold fire," he called out, his voice firm. Confusion swept across the room. The woman lowered her weapon slowly, her expression unchanged, but the crowd erupted in murmurs. Something wasn't right. The champion stepped forward, smirking as if he had been waiting for this moment. "Before she takes that shot," he announced, "let's make it fair. Let's shoot side by side." The challenge hung heavy in the air. It wasn't just about her skill anymore. It was now a direct contest, the champion refusing to let her prove herself without a fight. The crowd buzzed with excitement, phones raised higher, eager to capture what was turning into a showdown. For the first time, the woman glanced toward him, her eyes calm but sharp, as though she had expected this all along. She gave a single nod, agreeing without a word. The range master set 2 identical targets at the farthest lane, both barely visible in the distance. The air thickened, a hush falling over the crowd as the stakes rose higher than anyone imagined. The younger shooter in the crowd clenched his fists, torn between admiration and worry. If she missed even once, the champion would dismiss her entirely, reducing her incredible shots to nothing more than a lucky streak. But if she matched him, or worse, surpassed him, the entire reputation of the range would flip in an instant. The champion loaded his weapon with deliberate flair, exaggerating each movement to remind everyone of his confidence. She, on the other hand, prepared quietly, her focus unshaken. 2 shooters, 2 targets, and 1 moment that could shatter everything. The range fell silent, waiting for the sound of the first shot. The signal was given, and both shooters raised their weapons in unison. The silence in the range was so sharp it felt like the world itself was holding its breath. 2 shots rang out almost at the same instant, echoing together like a challenge answered. The crowd leaned forward, eyes darting between the 2 distant targets as they reeled back. The champion's target showed an almost perfect bullseye, just slightly off-center. It was the kind of shot that would usually earn applause, but no one clapped yet. All eyes shifted to the woman's target, and the room erupted in gasps. Her bullet had cut clean through the very center, sharper than her first 3 shots, as if she had drawn a line through perfection itself. The champion froze, his jaw tight, unable to hide the disbelief in his eyes. For years, he had been untouchable, his record unmatched. But in one afternoon, this quiet, unknown woman had not only matched him, she had gone beyond him. The crowd cheered, some shouting her praises, others simply shaking their heads in awe. The young shooter who had been watching all day smiled, knowing he had just witnessed a piece of history. But just as the champion turned away, defeated, the range master held up the target again. "Wait," he said, pointing carefully. The crowd fell quiet. The woman's bullet had torn straight through the very center, but behind it, hidden in the same hole, was a second tear. 2 bullets had landed in nearly the exact same spot. The champion's shot had split into hers. The room erupted again, this time in confusion and disbelief. Had she beaten him outright, or had fate tied them together in a way no one could deny? The battle was over, but the legend of what really happened had just begun. The range buzzed with voices as people argued over what they had just witnessed. Some swore the woman's shot was cleaner, sharper, undeniable proof of her skill. Others insisted the champion's bullet landing in the same space showed he wasn't ready to give up his crown so easily. For a few minutes, the room was alive with debate, but through it all, she stood calm and quiet, her weapon lowered, her eyes steady. She hadn't come for cheers, and she certainly hadn't come for arguments. Her shots had already spoken louder than words ever could. The champion finally stepped closer, his pride bruised but not broken. For the first time, there was no sarcasm in his voice. "Who taught you to shoot like that?" he asked. She paused, then gave the smallest of smiles. "No one," she replied softly. "Just practice." Her answer left the crowd stunned. No secret training, no hidden history, just dedication and focus. The younger shooter in the crowd felt a spark ignite inside him. He realized that what he had seen wasn't just about breaking records, but about pushing limits and never letting assumptions define what someone could achieve. The older regulars nodded quietly, some even clapping, recognizing that a new standard had been set in their familiar range. The champion gave a reluctant nod of respect, acknowledging what everyone already knew, that his record had been met, maybe even surpassed. But instead of defeat, there was something else in his eyes. Challenge. This wasn't the end of a rivalry, it was the beginning of one that would keep both shooters sharp. As she packed up and walked out, the crowd watched in silence. A simple woman had walked in unnoticed, and left as the legend no one would ever forget.